Ever feel like you're just carrying the whole team? Like you're the one doing all the thinking, coming up with all the ideas, and then on top of that, you're the one who has to push everyone else to actually get things done.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's exhausting, right? You're trying to lead, but it feels more like you're constantly herding cats, and you're the one who's getting scratched.
Definitely. And then those meetings.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about the ones where it's just you trying to pull teeth to get anyone to say anything. Or maybe the opposite. Every time you suggest something, you just get hit with a wall of no, or that won't work, or we tried that before.
You got it. It's
Yeah.
like every ounce of your energy is going into just getting people to move an inch.
And it makes you wonder, is this what leadership is supposed to feel like? Like, am I doing something wrong?
Well, first of all, let me just say, if this is resonating with you, you are so not alone. In fact, these are really common struggles, especially for leaders who are passionate and driven. And actually, you might be surprised to hear that these feelings could be a signal that there's an opportunity for some real growth in how you approach leadership.
Okay, so not a sign that I'm failing.
Not at all. More like a sign that there's another level you can reach. And what we're diving into today might just be the key to unlocking that. We're talking about the power of empowered teams and shared governance, and specifically how these concepts fit into the bigger picture of the executive's compass framework, especially that leadership presence pillar.
Right, because leadership presence is about more than just like how you stand or how loud your voice is.
Exactly. It's about your ability to inspire, to create an environment where your team feels genuinely empowered to contribute their best, to make decisions, and honestly, to share the load of leadership with you.
And that sounds amazing, honestly. But I think for a lot of people, myself included, the idea of empowering your team can feel a little bit, I don't know, like scary. Like, am I giving up control? Am I letting things fall apart?
I get it. It's a big shift. But that's what we're here to unpack today. We're going to dig into the executive's compass, see what it has to say about what it really means to empower your team and cultivate shared governance. And most importantly, we're going to explore why this isn't about relinquishing your leadership. It's about evolving it.
Sounds like exactly what I need. So let's jump in. Why does the Executive's Compass put so much emphasis on this whole empowering teams and shared governance thing? What makes it so essential for effective leadership, especially at the executive level?
Well, the executive's compass makes this really interesting point. It says that a lot of times leaders, especially those in high pressure roles, end up taking on way more than they need to.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
They feel like they have to be the one making every decision, solving every problem, driving every initiative. But what the compass suggests is that often this isn't because it has to be that way. It's because the culture of the organization, the way things have always been done, just hasn't really embraced the idea of shared ownership.
So it's not that the team isn't capable. It's that the system isn't set up to let them step up.
You got it. And so the leader ends up being the bottleneck. They become the single point of failure and everybody loses.
That's a really good point. So let's talk about what that actually looks like in practice. For the listener out there, what does leadership without empowerment, the kind that the executive's compass is warning against, what does that actually feel like on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, I think the executive's compass describes it pretty well. Imagine this. You're constantly in firefighting mode. There's always something urgent that needs your attention. You're putting out fires left and right. And most of them are things that, realistically, other people on your team could be handling.
Oh, tell me about it. It feels like I'm always running around with a fire extinguisher.
And that takes a toll. And then, because you're the one always solving the problems, your team sort of falls into this pattern of waiting for instructions. They become passive. They don't take initiative because they know you're just going to swoop in and fix everything anyway.
And they're probably thinking, why bother?
Right. And so you end up with these meetings where nobody really wants to speak up. It's all on you to come up with the ideas, to make the decisions. And as the compass points out, that stifles innovation because you're only getting one perspective, your perspective.
And what about the team's morale in all of this?
Yeah, so in the executive's compass, they talk about how this lack of empowerment ultimately leads to disengagement. People aren't invested because they don't feel like they have any real ownership over what they're doing.
So they're just going through the motions.
Exactly. They're doing the work, but their hearts aren't really in it. And that's a recipe for burnout, not just for the leader, but for the whole team.
Okay, so that's the dark side. Now let's talk about the flip side. What does it look like when you have a leader who truly gets this, who embraces the principles of empowerment and shared governance that the executive's compass lays out? What does that look like in action?
Well, it's pretty much the opposite of everything we just talked about. I think what the executive's compass really emphasizes is that when you have an empowered team, you see people stepping up and taking ownership without being asked. They're not waiting for you to tell them what to do. They're proactively identifying problems and coming up with solutions.
So they're not just doing the work, they're thinking about the work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And those meetings we talked about, the ones where nobody wanted to talk, those become totally different. People are engaged, they're sharing ideas, they're challenging each other respectfully, and they're all working together to come up with the best solutions.
And everyone feels comfortable speaking up, even if they disagree.
Yes, that's a really big piece of it. The executive's compass talks about this idea of psychological safety. When people feel safe to speak their minds, to take risks, to make mistakes without being punished, that's when you get the best out of them.
Because they're not afraid to be wrong.
Exactly. And then when the team actually achieves something, it's a shared win. Everyone feels proud because they know they played a part in it.
So it's not just about delegating tasks. It's about creating a whole different dynamic within the team.
Right. And the executive's compass really emphasizes this idea of moving from a mindset of I'm responsible for everything to a mindset of we're in this together.
So let's unpack that a little bit more. If empowerment isn't just about handing off tasks, what does it actually look like in practice, according to the executive's compass? What kind of messages are you sending to your team when you're truly empowering them?
The executive's compass hits the nail on the head with this. It's about saying, you matter, your ideas matter, and we're going to figure this out together. You're creating a space where questions aren't seen as challenges to your authority, but as opportunities to learn and grow together.
So you're not shutting down questions, you're encouraging them.
Absolutely. And feedback, too. You're not just tolerating feedback, you're actively seeking it out because you recognize that it's essential for the team's development. And you're encouraging people to take initiative, to go above and beyond their defined roles, to try new things, to experiment.
And what about when things don't go as planned? How do you handle mistakes in an empowered environment?
That's so crucial. The executive's compass is very clear about this. Mistakes aren't failures to be punished. They're opportunities to learn. And you, as the leader, need to model that. When something goes wrong, you don't point fingers. You work with the team to figure out what happened, why it happened, and what can be done differently next time.
So you're turning mistakes into learning experiences for the whole team.
Exactly. And that creates a culture of continuous improvement where everyone feels safe to take risks and to innovate.
Now, we've been talking a lot about empowerment, but I know for some people, the idea of shared governance might be a little bit harder to grasp. How does the executive's compass define that?
So the executive's compass is really clear about this. Shared governance, at its core, is about making decisions with the team, not for the team. It's about recognizing that the best solutions often come from tapping into the collective intelligence of the group.
So you're not just dictating from on high. You're actually involving the team in the decision-making process.
Right, and it's not just about getting their input. It's about actually giving them a voice and a vote. It's about saying, your perspective matters, and we want to make this decision together.
And that probably feels very different for people who are used to a more traditional top-down leadership style.
It definitely can. I think the executive's compass acknowledges that. A lot of leaders, especially those who've been successful in more hierarchical environments, might find this whole idea of co-creation a little bit, I don't know, uncomfortable.
Like, am I giving up my authority?
Right, it can feel like that at first. But the compass is really trying to emphasize that this isn't about giving up control. It's about rebalancing it. It's about recognizing that you, as the leader, don't have to have all the answers. And in fact, the best answers often come from the people who are closest to the work.
So it's not about being the smartest person in the room. It's about creating an environment where the smartest ideas can emerge, no matter where they come from.
Exactly. And that's where your role as a leader shifts. You become less of a director and more of a facilitator. You're still providing guidance and support, but you're also creating space for your team to step up and lead.
There's that great quote, people support what they help build.
Yeah.
That really seems to capture the essence of what we're talking about here.
That's so true, and I think the executive's compass would totally agree. If you're struggling with a team that seems disengaged, maybe the issue isn't that they're lazy or unmotivated. Maybe it's that they haven't really been given the opportunity to be a part of something bigger than themselves.
They haven't been invited to help build it.
Exactly. And when people feel like they're part of something, when they feel like their contributions are valued, that's when you get real commitment.
So we've talked about the why, of empowerment and shared governance. Now, for the listener out there who's thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but how do I actually start doing this? What's the first step? What does the Executive's Compass recommend?
So in the Executive's Compass, they give a really practical action item for this. They say, think about a decision that's coming up, something concrete, like maybe a change to a policy or a workflow, or even just how you run your meetings. And ask yourself these questions. Who's going to be affected by this decision? Who on my team might have valuable insights that I haven't even thought of? And here's the key. Who's someone whose input I haven't really sought out before?
So you're intentionally looking for people who might have a different perspective.
Exactly. And then here's the step that takes it from theory to practice. You reach out to those people. You invite them into the conversation. You make it clear that you're not just looking for them to rubber stamp your ideas. You genuinely want their input.
And you're actually listening to what they have to say.
Right. You're not just going through the motions of getting their feedback. You're truly open to hearing their perspectives and to incorporating their ideas into the final decision. And you're making sure they know that their contributions were valued.
And that can be as simple as saying, hey, thanks for that suggestion. We're going to incorporate that into the plan.
Absolutely. It's those little things that make a huge difference. And that's what the Executive's Compass is really driving at here. Empowerment starts with a single invitation.
And it's not a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process.
Right. It's about building that muscle of collaboration and shared ownership. And to help you really internalize these concepts, the Executive's Compass also includes some really insightful journal prompts that you can use to reflect on your own experiences.
So you're not just hearing about this, you're actually applying it to your own life.
Yeah, the first prompt asks you to think back to a time when you made a decision on your own without really involving your team, and to think about how that went. Did your team feel ownership over the decision, or did they push back, even if it was subtle?
So you're looking for those patterns in your own behavior.
Exactly. And then the next prompt is about your current team. Who are the people who already feel empowered? And who are the ones who maybe are still waiting for permission to step up?
So you're getting a sense of where you are right now.
Right. And then finally, the compass asks you to think about a specific system, process, or meeting where you could build in more shared governance, and to imagine what would be different if you did.
So you're thinking about concrete ways to apply these principles in your day-to-day work.
Exactly. It's about taking these big ideas and making them actionable.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the what and the why of empowering teams and fostering shared governance, all based on the insights from the Executive's Compass. What would you say is the key takeaway for the listener in terms of the long-term impact of embracing these principles? What are the benefits that they can expect to see down the road?
I think the Executive's Compass is really clear about this. When you genuinely empower your team, you're not just getting things done more efficiently, you're creating a culture of resilience, because the responsibility for solving problems and innovating is spread across the team.
So it's not all on your shoulders anymore.
Right. And that frees you up to focus on the bigger picture, on the things that only you as the leader can do. And it also leads to more innovation because you're getting input and ideas from a much wider range of perspectives.
So you're breaking out of that echo chamber.
Exactly. And perhaps most importantly, you're building trust. You're showing your team that you value their contributions, that you trust their judgment, and that you're willing to share power with them. And that kind of trust is incredibly powerful.
It's the foundation of a high-performing team.
Absolutely. And as we mentioned earlier, this deep dive is all part of our Problems and Solutions series, which is grounded in the Executive's Compass framework.
Right, because the compass gives you a really holistic view of leadership, covering all the key areas you need to master to be successful at the executive level.
And for those of you who are intrigued by this whole idea of empowerment and want to explore it further, we've got a really interesting discussion coming up that I think you'll find valuable.
Oh yeah, that one about the difference between empowering your team and accidentally enabling learned helplessness.
That's the one. We're going to get into the nuances of how to walk that line, how to support your team without doing everything for them. And we'll also be talking about how to shift your team's mindset from compliance to commitment, which is a natural outcome of fostering genuine empowerment and shared governance.
So it's not just about getting people to do what you say, it's about getting them to believe in what you're doing.
Exactly. And that's when the real magic happens.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to that conversation.
Yeah.
But for now, as we wrap up this deep dive into empowering teams and shared governance, here's a final thought for you to ponder. What if, By intentionally building shared governance within your team, your department, or even your entire organization, you could not only achieve better results and build a more engaged and proactive team, but also fundamentally change the way each individual perceives their own value and contribution. What kind of ripple effect could that create? Think about that, and we'll see you back here for our next deep dive.